Hey guys, so today I just wanted to do a video on how I avoid art block. I've actually had a lot of success avoiding art block. I find avoiding art block is really easy for me these days, and I'm not trying to brag. I just want you guys to be excited to know that it's possible to avoid art block and to get ahead of art block. So first of all, if you haven't seen my video yet on avoiding burnout, I think that you should definitely watch that after you watch this. Because I think avoiding burnout and avoiding art block, while they are two separate things and they have separate solutions, I think that they're both extremely helpful, and I think we should all strive to avoid both. Because it's really easy for you to maybe figure out how to avoid one and not the other, and vice versa. So this video is not scripted really, so I'm just going to kind of wing this one because I find that I have gotten my process down pretty well and how I avoid art block. And this is my way, this is my opinion. Everyone needs to develop their own way. But I think you can use my methodology as a template to create your own. For example, I typically create oil paintings and digital paintings. You may create a totally different thing. You might do sculptures. You might be a DJ. You might create music. You might write novels. Whatever the case may be, you're going to have a different set of steps to go through if you do a separate type of art or creative outlet. So this is just from a perspective of a painter. So keep that in mind. That's really important to keep in mind. You're going to have to develop your own methodology if you are in different fields. And maybe even if you're within the same field as me, you might still have to develop your own methodology, but this should help you sort of create a template to go by. So what do I mean by a template? So by a template, I just mean like, even though these exact steps might not work for you, you might be able to create your own steps from my ideas. So how I start to avoid art block is, first of all, I always, and I mean always, I can't stress this enough, I always have a huge backlog of inspiration stored up. Whether it's on my computer, on my phone, or on my iPad. I keep inspirational photos, inspirational images, inspirational Pinterest boards, just inspirational like color boards, like whatever the case may be, mood boards, whatever. I keep these things on hand at all times in any situation where I'm going to be creative or I might make art. So if I'm home, which is usually where I make my art, I want to have this stuff close by. If I am taking my easel out and about, or if I'm taking my sketchbook out into the public, I still want to have my phone on me, and I want to have my inspiration handy. Now, my inspiration is very multifaceted. I keep a backlog, or I guess I should say a backstock of free free images, images you're allowed to use for Photoshop, for art, for collage, for photo editing, for reference, like images from like Pexels, PEXELS.com. I love that website. There's Unsplash. There are lots of different free reference photo, like royalty-free reference photos online that you're allowed to use in whatever your creative field is, right? So I keep photos like that are completely free to use and manipulate and change and whatever the case you need to do with it. I keep a lot of those on my phone for reference, just in case. Like, I'm telling you what, I download a bunch of those, and in some cases I never end up using certain ones because I have downloaded so many that I end up just kind of like always having a bunch of extra ones on my phone, right? I also use photos, like if I want to do something that's more anatomy driven. I also use I can't remember how to pronounce it exactly. I don't know if it's Crocus Cafe. But you can Google that. I'll try to have the spelling on the screen right here or something, or a link in the description or something for you guys so you guys can check that out. But anyway, I typically keep images from them on my phone too, which, just so you know, that website's not safe for work. It is what it is. It's nude models for your art. So it's going to be things that help you with anatomy. So just keep that in mind. I just want you to know that ahead of time so you don't just click into it and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that. Yeah, it's definitely not safe for work content, but I'll keep a few images of that on my phone too, just so I can quickly and easily access it for art purposes. And another thing that I keep on my phone is what I call mood boards, but you could also call them inspiration boards. And basically what they are, what I mean by that, is I take screenshots of photos that I like on my phone. So like I'll get on Pinterest and I'll look at makeup photos. I will look at like hair photos. I will look at I don't know, like landscape photos. And I will keep these screenshots on my phone to immediately turn into collages. So not like a collage like where I cut stuff out and I arrange it or anything, just literally a collage of photos, just the normal square or rectangle photos in a collage that I call a mood board. So the whole point of these little individual mood boards that I create and keep on my phone at all times is that I use them as a jumping off point for artwork. So let's say I created a mood board that had a photo of a butterfly and it had a photo of a girl with curly hair and it also contained a photo of like a really old Victorian house. I would, like, if I had those three photos in a mood board, I would use that as a jumping off point for my idea for my painting. So it would include a girl with curly hair. Maybe there's a butterfly in her hair or a butterfly in the distance or a butterfly in her hand or something, and she is in front of an old Victorian house, for example. That would be how I approach that. Now, to be fair, most of the time, I will have a mood board like that, and I will start a sketch with that idea in my head, but then once I go into the sketch, it completely changes to something different. And I also use my reference photos, like my free stock images that I mentioned earlier. I'll use them as reference for the actual sketch itself. So I'm not directly referencing like the images on my mood boards necessarily, unless I am changing them significantly. But instead, I'm using these free images as my references for the actual outlines, for the actual poses and the shapes. But then I'm looking at the mood board for inspiration for themes. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's easy to like visualize. And what this does is this means you have a multifaceted approach to avoiding art block. Because typically, art block is something where we don't know what to make. We don't know what to create, right? And I find that for me, this is the best way to pretty much never have art block again. Because if I always have a huge backlog of reference images I can go off of and draw off of, and I also have mood boards to look at, and I have inspirational images to look at, and all of this together on my phone or my tablet or whatever, that means I don't really have an excuse for not coming up with some new painting idea or sketch idea. And then after I create a mood board and I get my reference images, I sit down at my sketch table and I sketch the idea out first. And I typically sketch like 4 things in a row, and I usually just pick like one of those sketches or maybe 2 to become a painting. So most of my sketches might not even ever turn into a painting, but I just kind of pick my favorites. Like the things that I love the most, like I think that I did the best job on, those sketches usually end up being pushed toward being a painting. Now, I do a similar thing for digital art, but it's not always exactly linear for me with digital art, but that's how I do it for traditional art. So once I have that sketch, then I just turn that sketch into a painting. And the way that I do that is I transfer the sketch to the board, which I can't remember if I have a video on that. If you guys need a video on that, please comment down below. But look through my backlog of videos first and just see if I have a video on that. Because it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to transfer a sketch from just like a Xerox sketch that you've done to your board, to your artboard. It's not that hard to do. So if you guys want a video on that, I can totally do that. Just let me know. But anyway, once I have transferred the sketch to the painting, or the painting board, obviously then I just paint over top of the sketch. And that is how I create my traditional art. And it's a very similar process for my digital art. It's pretty much the same thing. I'm always collecting images that I love. I always have a backlog of reference images, and if I don't have reference images, then I immediately, when I start the new piece, go and I look online for those websites I already mentioned before, and I grab a reference photo. I do have to do that a lot on stream, so I consider my digital art a little bit more impromptu than my traditional, but I still find the process is very similar. I'm still looking at things that inspire me and combining them with reference images that I'm using for the poses. And that's basically it. Now, a way to add some flavor to this is you can also think of maybe some themes that you want to include in your art. Like maybe you want to say something deeper and put a deeper meaning in your art. You could superimpose that deeper meaning into your art while also doing all these other steps. And how you would do that is you could put symbolism in your art, or you could put some emotion into your artwork, into the people in your artwork, or create the emotion with colors or other things, other elements in the art. So there are so many ways that you can infuse meaning into these types of artworks that you're making with all of this inspiration as well. So you don't have to limit yourself. You don't have to just go, well, you know, I have art block on this level or that level or all the levels. Like instead, you have a jumping off point to go on, and then on top of that, you can add your own meaning to it. You can add your own extra things to it to make it have whatever kind of emotion that you want to get across, or whatever kind of theme and subject matter you want to get across. I find that to be fairly simple once you have the basic bones of the artwork. So I hope this helps. This definitely helps me. This is how I do pretty much all of my artworks these days. And just a quick overview, a quick summary. So first, I scour the internet for inspirational images, whether it's the colors in the image that I like, whether it's the place, like it's a beautiful place with a creek or mountains or whatever, or if it's images of makeup and hair that I love. And then I also look at reference photos separately from that I'm actually allowed to use for free, royalty-free stock images and things like that, to use to create the actual artwork itself, to actually look off of for poses, for anatomy, for all the things that we need for references for things. And sometimes I even take my own photos, which I actually didn't even mention that, but a lot of times I might even just take my own photos like in my garden for like flower references, or I might have Derek take photos of me for model references. But I use a mix of my own photos and other like free stock photos for like references. And then I just, like I said, I look at my inspiration boards for like what's the theme, like what's the basic idea, what kind of place do I want this to take place in, things like that. And I sit down, I make a sketch, and once I have the sketch, I transfer the sketch to the board, and then I paint over it. And that's my process, and that's how I avoid art block. And I don't think I've had art block in a very, very, very long time. Ever since I started doing this and started keeping a backlog of inspiration on my phone and on my iPad, I've not really suffered from art block, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here. I just want to reiterate that it is possible to avoid art block altogether. Like, it really is. Because I find that a lot of times our excuse for having art block is like, I'm not inspired. And honestly, this is how you can stay inspired, like, all the time. is always having inspirational images to look at and to ponder and like reimagine and using them to get other ideas. I mean, it's like a springboard. It's like, yeah, your painting might not even be, you may not even be able to tell that your painting derived from this exact mood board that you chose. And that's actually kind of better anyway if it doesn't. But it still shows that, like, you know, it helped you get somewhere. It helped you create a piece, even if you didn't get every single idea from the mood board. And maybe you didn't even use every single idea that was on the mood board. Like, I find a lot of times I'll use, like, half the images that are even on the board, like, for inspiration. So anyway, I hope that helps, and I hope you guys have a great day. I want you to check out my video on avoiding burnout, because I think that avoiding burnout and avoiding art block together is so important for artists. I think it can open up so many doors for you guys if you don't have to deal with art block that much anymore, and if you have very few burnout situations. I think if we can avoid both of these together, I think we can go pretty far. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What are some ways you avoid art block? What are some things that you do to get your inspiration flowing? I think there are so many ways, really, that it's hard to put them all in one video. So definitely put yours down below, and I would love to know more. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!